Welcome to another vintage fishing reel service video. In this episode we have another version of the Zebco 33. This one, I think somewhere on here, I was looking to see if it had a copyright date on the label. I'm not seeing it, but this one, this kind of maroon colored one, was cataloged or appeared in the catalogs in 1998 through the year 2000. The actual production dates may vary. It may be, production may have been a little bit earlier than 98, but it was cataloged between 1998 and 2000. So this is a lot of these 33s are very similar, and of course if you're experienced with fishing reel service and so on, nothing too complicated. But sometimes you just want to see what's inside and see how it differs from other versions, or sometimes maybe somebody isn't really well versed in reel repair and they have this reel and they're not sure how they vary from others, and they want to see a service of their exact reel. So it can be helpful to have these anyway, even though they're in a lot of ways very similar. So I'm going to start with pulling off the cover, which is just a short counterclockwise turn, and it pops off. You can see this one's been used. It's dirty. I think this is going to clean up really nice. The spinner head, this one wasn't on tight, but basically you hold the handle and you may have to use some elbow grease if it's on there tight, but it just screws off in a counterclockwise fashion. There's your pickup pin. I don't see any issues with that. I don't see any cuts in the spinner head. The line break here, this line stops in good shape, so that's good. That's all dirty. We'll put that in the parts tray. Then you've got a E-clip here. We're going to make sure that the drag is all the way off, because that'll make getting, depends on how, I don't remember the brake system in here, but it's always a good idea to turn the drag all the way down. That either relieves pressure from the E-clip, so that comes off easier, or it relieves pressure from the spool so that you can get the spool off. You've got this plastic cover, and then the spool comes off. So this is a pressure plate mechanism, so turning the drag all the way off in this case will relieve the pressure on the E-clip and make that come off easier. It's not one that operates on the inside of the spool. Either that's corrosion or somebody used white lithium grease in there, which I don't recommend. You should use a real grease. Okay, I guess I can't remember if they typically have a, I guess maybe not, but I wondered if maybe there would have been another Teflon washer between that and the spool, but I guess not. I guess this kind of works associated with the drag. And then you've got a Teflon washer which went on right up against the back side of the spool, and then you've got a keyed metal washer. So let's get this nasty line off of there. Okay, got that off. That can go on the parts tray. And then we've got a really corroded pressure plate here. That's going to take some steel wool to clean up, but yeah, that's not in great condition, but it's fine. It'll work. There's your drag clicker. There's your drag screw. We can see about taking that out in a minute. Hopefully this isn't all nasty and gritty, so that we can back this off of there. Sometimes you got to be careful. You don't want to break this, but I'm gonna put a towel on there and kind of use the thumb button to give me some leverage. We don't want to break it. I'm just trying to see if I've moved. I don't know that I've moved it enough. There. Now you can see that it's moved enough. And then we should be able to winkle this off of there. Okay. So it looks like our anti-reverse is on. Wait a minute. No, our bait clicker's on. We gotta turn the bait clicker off. Okay. So now, this doesn't look like it's been, I bet you this is all factory grease. It was factory line. I can tell by the way the line is attached to the spool. This was factory line. So this is, line was never replaced on this, and I suspect that's factory grease. I doubt if this thing's ever been serviced. So I'm gonna take off the handle here. And I think that's the correct handle. Looks like it should be for this version. And it looks like there's a little spacer washer there, shim washer. And then we've got to take out, well, we can pull this out, the axle shaft and pinion gear. Pinion gear looks pretty good. I don't see much wear on it. I don't think this rib was used much. So that can go in the parts tray. And then we've got this little nylon clip here that we've got to take out. And just remember that this has a little shelf on it, or lip, and that when that goes back in, that lip faces towards the handle. And at this point, if we can get our bait clicker out of the way, let's see here. I can't remember if there, I think that, does that bushing come out of there? I can't remember. If it does, that thing's really stuck in there pretty good. Let's see. I think this bushing is supposed to come out, and it's really stuck in there. Yeah. And then that groove is what that clip fits into. So that groove goes in when you put it back together. And then we should be able to winkle this main gear out of there. And this is the little arm that actuates the anti-reverse pawl right here. And there's no real need to take that out. If you can help it, I don't recommend taking this off of the main gear, because that, you don't want to like spread that out too much or tighten it too much. It's got kind of just the right tension on it to do what it's supposed to do. It really doesn't need to come off. You can clean around it. So I'm just going to put that in the parts tray like that. We could take out the drag screw and drag knob, and that's righty-tighty left, or no, that's bass backwards, so it's reverse threaded, so you have to go clockwise to unscrew it. And then your drag adjustment knob will pop out, so we can get in there and clean some of that corrosion off and oil that up good. So that's all there is to tear down on that one. So we'll put these parts in the sink, or we'll take them to the sink, and I'm going to use Dawn dishwashing soap. You know, I'll scrape some of that thick grease out of there, but the residue I'll hit with WD-40, and I'll get down into all the bushings and journals and things down through there with a cotton swab. Is there a bearing in there? I can't see. It looks. I have to get it cleaned out. I can't tell. At any rate, and then of course, if you do use WD-40, I like to then go back with on dishwashing soap everywhere and get the WD-40 off, because you don't want that interacting with your lubricants, your oils and greases. So I just use that to degrease. And so head to the sink, get these cleaned up, and I'll be back just like that. Whoo, that cleaned up nice. I mean, shiny like new. Alright, I'm going to get all these parts out so you can see what all is here. Alright. First thing I want to do is do some cleaning with some steel wool, because this pressure plate is pretty corroded, and the metal coating is coming off, but I can at least get the residue off, and I'll probably grease that up to hopefully protect it from future further corrosion. And then this shaft is pretty nasty on the main gear shaft, so polish that up a little bit better. It's better. Get the pinion gear shaft while we're at it. And metal drag washer, and that isn't corrosion, that's just grease residue that wasn't coming off even with the WD-40. And a toothbrush. There. Alright, so let's get back to, I'm still trying to figure out if that's a bearing in there or just a bushing. Kind of think it's just a, can't really tell if that's spinning in there or not. I don't think so. I don't see any advertising of a bearing. So, alright, so we can go ahead and get our main gear in, and I'm going to start with some grease on the cogs of the anti-reverse, and some oil, what am I out of oil? Alright, some oil on that, and get that in there. Now, when we put that in, we've got to make sure that this extension on that anti-reverse lever goes into the square notch in that anti-reverse pawl. So we'll just kind of get that in there in the relative position it needs to be in. And then we can grease the exterior of this bushing, and you could add a little more oil inside if you want, and push that in. Get in there. And make sure that's, I think that needs to go be all the way as far in as it will go. I've got the lever in the notch, but it's not, oh, something ain't right here. It's not, the pawl isn't fitting into the cogs properly. Oh, dummy, I bet you I had that anti-reverse off. That might be it. I'm just gonna sneak this in there for a second and see if that... Yeah, I think I had the anti-reverse off, dummy. Alright, dum-dum. Get this, well, we gotta stick this in first, and then get our bushing back in. Yeah, now the anti-reverse is working. Alright, now we gotta get this clip back in, remembering that little ledge at the top, that little shelf, faces towards the handle and clips down into the groove on the bushing until it's fully seated. And now we can grease the main gear teeth, and now we're ready for the pinion gear. I like to, it's probably stupid, but I like to pull that pinion gear up and get the oil underneath there, and then go back and get that, and then pack the pinion gear teeth with grease. Just get the grease down in the, packed in those teeth, and then oil that shaft and insert that back in place. Alright, we can go ahead and put our drag and adjustment knob in. We can, before we do that, we can drop a little bit of oil on this drag screw. And remember, this is reverse threaded, so we're going to be going counterclockwise to tighten that back in. And we're going to want to tighten that all the way down. For the most part, we're going to have to line that slot up with the tab on that eventually when we get that on. But I think we're ready to button up the rear end here. And so we're just going to pop on that cap and make a clockwise turn until it stops. Come on. There, now it clicked into place. Alright, so now I'm going to grease up, so this spool is going to spin around the spindle, so we can lubricate around there. Lubricate the top here that actuates the pickup pin. Keep that from getting more wear than it needs to. I'm going to grease this pressure plate for the main purpose of preventing any further corrosion. I don't want to overdo it. And then doesn't matter which tab goes where, just as long as one tab goes into that drag adjustment screw and the other one goes over here. So you just have to line up the head of that screw so that that tab fits in there, and then the other one will fit in over there. Now we're ready for our metal keyed drag washer. So that's gonna, those three little ears are gonna fit down into some of those grooves. And then we have our self-lubricating Teflon washer, and then we have our spool, and of course this is your drag clicker. Sometimes you can spring that up a little bit if you think it's sprung, but make sure the tooth side of the spool goes down. That's what the clicker engages into. And then we've got our cap, which probably also functions sort of as a drag washer. And finally our E-clip. And then we gotta lubricate the pickup pin around the pivot point and get some where the arm of the pickup pin meets the metal, so that moves nice and freely. Then you just screw that on. Might help get the handle on so you can tighten that. You don't have to really wrench on the thing, but you want to get it tight so it don't spin off. And then we had this little shim washer here. I took this to the vise. This handle was bent. I got it mostly straightened out. And then we've got our, and I probably should have cleaned off that nut a little better, but trying not to get that cross-threaded. Get that on there. And then we'll tighten up our spool a little bit. Look for your drain hole, make sure that faces down. The logo, the Zebco logo should be on top, so that when you twist it into place, your Zebco logo is right on top. Drag adjustment knob's working fine. Oh, I've already cleaned these out with WD-40, but you can put a drop or two of oil to make these work freely. And wash some of that down there. You'll see a bunch of nasty black gunk coming out the other side. But there you have one of the versions of the Zebco 33 that was cataloged between 1998 2000, so all three catalogs, 98, 99, 2000, may have been manufactured earlier than 98. I think some of the references say they may have started them in 95. I don't know. I just know when they're cataloged. But nice looking, turned out to be a real nice looking functional reel. Got this for probably $5. You know, if you play your cards right and you do your homework and, you know, go to antique stores, flea markets, etc., you don't have to pay online auction prices for these farm fresh things, and then you can have some fun fixing them up and using them. So that's all for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.